I'm not letting any behaviors of anybody go this year. If you behave in a certain way and articulate yourself in a certain way, if you fuck around, you're going to find out. What will I not compromise on? I won't have a guest on if I don't resonate with them, if I don't like them, or you know what I mean? Like, there's lots of guests that I can have on that bring me lots of clout, lots of views, but
Agreed.
I don't like them. I was resolute last year when I was even going through turmoil, but now I'm like, fuck me, I'm a different animal now. Just focus on what's the quickest way for me to get to the internal core and understand self, because that is the key that unlocks all the fucking doors to everything that you say that you want in life. At the end of this year, in order to look back on my life this year, would be to say, have you learned what you needed to learn to be even closer to the best version of yourself than you are right now?
Frankie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. We made it happen.
Mate, we've made it happen. We've had audio problems. We'd have everything, but today we're going to dive in. Let's add some value.
I'm so looking forward to it. And I was saying to you before, I've been following you for a couple of years now, and you always have come across as an energetic, a focused, and enthusiastic person who really wants to do the right thing. But honestly, the 2024 version that I'm witnessing on Instagram stories, that I'm witnessing on your podcast, I think it's just another level of like Frankie Lee 2.0 is coming to us this year.
I finally feel like I've awoken and come alive. And I think part of that is because at 35, when you've kind of done the work that I've done, you know, done the breath work, done the mindset work, been all around different countries, lived in different locations, had the toxic relationships, come off the back of all that. When you've been through all these different journeys, boxing and everything else that I've been through, I think at 35 you can sit there and honestly say to yourself, do you know what? I'm doing this because it sets my heart on fire and it's what I'm meant to be doing. And I'm not doing this to prove anything to anybody. There's no ego to it. Like, I'm just doing it because I genuinely enjoy it and I want to add value to the world. And I think that's when you come to that peaceful place within yourself and you fully embody who the fuck you are. That is when you can go, all right, now I can actually give it a tear. Whereas before it's like, you know, it's a little bit this, a little bit of that, a little bit of needle, a little bit of this, but now you can actually sit within your power, know who the fuck you are and move forward. So I feel like I'm at that stage in life at 35.
It feels like, if we're using a boxing term, the gloves are off. Like, you really are like unleashed.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's like when I was, I suppose we'll pivot into different parts of the story, but it's like, you know, when I've done certain things in life, and we'll talk about this through the podcast, I've done things in my life at certain points to prove things to other people that I didn't have to prove. I didn't have to prove those things to other people, essentially. So I'm sure a lot of the audience will resonate with this as we talk through it. But if you're going through life and you do things for other people's validation or for what this can potentially bring to you, you kind of live this life that when you achieve these big goals or what you think is your goal, you arrive at the end and you're already defeated, because you realize you're looking out and what's looking back at you is like what's looking into an empty vessel, because the work that should have been done on the internal thing to make you feel good about what you're externally achieving has not been completed. So that's kind of, you know, a whole array of things that I've just put together over the years. It's really like, I just feel like I'm at a time now where I can come on here and just even give value to your audience about it, because I've lived it. I've truly lived it and embodied it and been through it and been punched and everything else, you know? So it's not like I can't resonate with how everyone on this who's listening to this right now might feel. You know, they might be driving to their job, you know, in England, and it's raining and it's cold and it's miserable. And, you know, I've been the carpenter and joiner doing that. And you know, I've had the boxing gym in Australia, and I've done the sales job, and I've had the internet business. So it's like, well, I can talk into these things. Hopefully I'll add some value through this and we can move it along.
I completely agree. And there's going to be so many cumulative moments along the way that lead to the kind of avalanche that I feel that we're witnessing at the start of this year. And when we were getting organized to record this, I was trying to fit in with the different time zones that I assumed you were going to be on, because obviously you do your podcast tours, you go here, there, everywhere. You have like a fantastic network of guests you've got on through traveling all over the place. But you were saying to me at the start of this year, I'm going to stay in England at the start of January and just get really, really dialed in. Why was that? What was driving that?
Yeah. So the key, there's a few things that are the key driver to it. There's an array of things, and I'll walk you through the array. Just to give you an insight into my calendar last year, I leave a place that I love in order to expand my podcast, which is Australia, in December last year. I live in England for a few months. It's the hardest time of the year to live in England, especially when you've lived the kind of life that I've lived for like 8.5 years in Australia in the Gold Coast. I get here. I then fly off to Dubai. I do content. I come back to England. I go back to Dubai. I do more content. I come back to the UK. Then I'm expecting to move out to Dubai, and I get blindsided. I meet this beautiful woman. These beautiful women come into your life at these times to teach you lessons about yourself, things that you don't know. And I didn't drop my podcast. I'd never drop my North Star goal in terms of like my podcast, but I thought, maybe I can pivot. This girl's an American girl, like half American, half Colombian, beautiful girl. I thought I could see myself having a long-term relationship with this girl. So I thought, you know what? Instead of going to Dubai, I'll cancel that and I'll go over on an American tour. And then I went on a 3-month American tour, and then we went to Dubai. And then when I kind of realized that me and her weren't suited in a relationship back in at the end of November, I had a lot of big podcasts going on at the time, like Kayla Itzines, and I was doing other big podcasts as well, like big podcasts for me at the level I'm at and trying to get to. When I finally realized that this relationship wasn't working, I thought, you know what, rather than doing what most men would do in this position and what I've done previously in the past, which is go and do the hookup culture or, try and rebound here and rebound there. I thought, you know what, this is a moment, because of the breath work, because of the mindset work, because of the mushroom journeys I've been on, because of all this other spiritual stuff that I've done over the years that have brought me to this point. I have an opportunity right now to do something I've never done. And that's to sit in the pain of understanding that this isn't the right relationship for me. But I'm going to sit in the pain of it, and I'm going to feel every bit of it. And I'm going to rise like a fucking phoenix out of it. But with the right learnings and lessons and insights and everything. Like, I'm not just going to run the same program that everyone else runs. I can learn something from this. And this is a gift, not a curse. So I came back to England and I sat in that pain and I meditated and I learned about myself, and I learned, things where I'd compromise my values that I said I'd never compromise, that led me to keep kicking this can down the road. And I sat there and I ascertained, okay, who the fuck am I? Why am I here? Everything like that. And I put it all together. And even though that has been a 10-year game, putting all that together, it's like I'm really dialed in, because now I'm like, I won't compromise my health. I will never compromise my podcast. I will never compromise. I won't have a guest on if I don't resonate with them, if I don't like them, or you know what I mean? Like, there's lots of guests that I can have on that bring me lots of clout, lots of views, but
Agreed.
I don't like them. So all this stuff has been put together, even in the last six to 8 weeks of being in the UK since the end of November. And it's been a painful and beautiful time, because you really get to understand self. And that's the key metric here, is the closer you can get to self as soon as possible, that is when you can actually change the mirror image that the world is showing you back. Because if you can't change how you look from the internal externally, the external mirror that mirrors everything that you believe in your life to be true cannot change. So that's been
It's
the
an
kind of
incredible
the
realization,
UK journey
Frankie,
so far.
and so powerful. And as human beings, we are wired to try and escape pain as quickly as possible. And modern society, many of the ills that you rail against with your content, we dive into these instant gratification pleasures: porn, drink, drugs, hookup culture, whatever else. And there's a desperate need for us to refuse these. And for you, as an example to your audience and as an example to the type of person that you want to be in the future, you've willingly sat within an area of pain where there is so much driving you internally in your head from your human nature to say, Frankie, get out of this. Don't think about this. Don't address this. Move away. Let's do something that makes me feel good in the moment, vaping, whatever it is, to just try and escape from this pain. By you voting with your actions to meditate on it, to think about it, probably journal about it, and maybe some of the other habits that you've got, you've actively chosen something that other people won't do. And that's why you'll come out of a breakup situation with the level of clarity that you have, like crystallizing the vision and the type of individual that you want to be for 2024 and beyond. I think is a really powerful lesson, even before we've just started speaking today. And it's so clear that if you can encourage somebody listening to this to sit within that pain for a little while and understand it better, look at the end result that can come from it. And if as a physical manifestation, you've just shared that you've lost 4 kilos and you were already in decent shape, but now you're like in like ruthless shape, you're in fighting shape again, and you're in this space where you just seem unstoppable with the energy that you're sharing on socials.
Yeah, I think the first thing I ascertained was like, okay, what does the highest version of you turn up to the world as? Like, if you want to go and compete, this isn't even about competing. So if you want to compete with the best version of Frankie Lee, what does he look like? Well, I kind of ascertained in my mind the best version of Frankie Lee is not out fighting people or fighting the world, but he's in the boxing gym and he's doing the boxing. He's lifting his weights, he's doing strength conditioning, he's eating 1,800 to 2,500 calories a day of healthy food, depending on what his macros need to be to hit his micronutrients. He's supplementing in the right way to give himself the best opportunity of recovery. He is a higher value man that doesn't accept this from women in his life and only accepts this version of him. Like, I'm only going to accept a woman in my life that comes in and generally lights up and adds value. I'm not going to accept any degeneracy. I'm not going to accept any of this, any of that. Not because they can do whatever they want to do, but they're just not going to be with me while they're doing that, or moving in that way, or operating in that way. And that goes for both my friends. It goes for girlfriends. It goes for anybody in my life, people in business. If you're doing business with me and you cheat on your wife, I'm not doing business with you, because if you cheat on your wife, you'll cheat on me and my business. So it's like all these little things. What will I not compromise on? And I wrote them down, and I know that, and I knew them before. But sometimes when someone is beautiful, that they can do things that oh, I'll let that slide, I'll let that go. I'm not letting any behaviors of anybody go this year. Like, if you behave in a certain way and articulate yourself in a certain way, then if you fuck around, you're going to find out. And what you're going to find out is not that I'm not going to attack you or be nasty to you or anything like that, but you're just
You're
going
going
to
to
be
vote
cut
with your
off.
feet,
You're
vote
going
with
to
your
be cut
actions.
off
I
from,
completely see that.
yeah. But I back myself as believing in the value that I can bring to the world. And I want everyone that listens to this to understand the value that they bring to the table and the values that they understand. Because when you understand the values and you write down your core values, this is what I expect in my partner, male or female. This is my non-negotiables. This is my non-negotiables for what I want to achieve in life. These are my non-negotiables for what I'll accept in my fitness and my physical journey. These are my non-negotiables for how my body's going to look. When you get this fucking real dialed in, this is what I will and this is what I won't accept in life, in all areas of your life: health, wealth, happiness, everything, girlfriend, boyfriend, all that stuff. When you get that dialed in, now you're a force to be reckoned with, because you're on purpose. If you can align that with then having a deeper purpose, something that's bigger than you, that you want to achieve in this world, because it's about something more than you do, like I do. Like my why philosophy for my podcast is to help people break patterns and flip perspectives in their life so they can have more clarity, more direction, and more success. That is a very fucking powerful why to wake you up in the morning and get you to understand why you do what you do. When you know all that and you put that together, you become this fucking force that can just blast through anything. But you can't do it until you know yourself. So that's the whole point of what I've done here. Sat in that pain, got to know myself, and this is why you're probably seeing a little bit of a, I was resolute last year when I was even going through turmoil, but now I'm like, fuck me, I'm a different animal now. Even when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm
It's
like,
been exciting
fuck
to
me.
watch, genuinely, and
There's,
it's been
yeah,
inspiring to watch for anyone that's tuned in. They're going to feel that energy in the way that you're speaking, the way you're carrying yourself as well. You mentioned importantly that it's been a 10-year journey. I want to go back to
yeah,
Frankie leaving the UK as a carpenter, 2014, heading to Australia.
yeah.
What was life like back then?
I'll explain exactly what life was. I was an English heritage carpentry joiner, one of the youngest ever to get, like, to work on buildings, Peterborough Cathedral, Westminster Abbey, Thorpe Hall Hospice, all these intricate, highly quality work carpentry jobs, putting in cathedral doors and all this kind of stuff, intricate work. £11.50 an hour is what I was getting paid. And I knew in my life that there had to be more to life than doing that and swapping my time for money. I knew that there was more to it. I didn't know how to access it. The only thing I knew was that there was this beautiful location called Australia. It seemed like when I watched Neighbours, Holly Valance was on there. I was like, you know what? I'm sold. I'm sold. I watched Bondi Rescue. I watched At Home or Abroad and all these real estate programs on homes abroad, homes under the hammer, all this stuff, relocation, and all this stuff. And it kind of lit me up. And I was like, do you know what? I just want to give that a go. But I want to caveat to the audience that I first wanted to leave the UK at 18, 19. And it took me until I was 26 to land in Australia. And I'm 30, it's about 35 now. It's about 25 I left England. So yeah, 35 now, going on 36. So it's about 10 and a half years.
What was holding you off from making the move, Frankie?
This is it. So what held me off making the move was I realized that I wasn't good enough to be a top professional boxer and work in that art. I all this stuff, I'd realized that. So I pursued this goal of becoming this professional boxing trainer to try and prove to everyone else that I was worthy of this substance. And I became the youngest professional boxing trainer in the UK at the time. I became that guy. And then I became the youngest to ever work at world title level before Ben Davison took Tyson Fury in, when I took Gary Cochran in with Frank Greaves years later in 2017 for the WBO World Title against Jeff Horn. But what I realized in that kind of journey was that was what held me in the UK. Oh, you need to be in UK for this boxing thing to work, this, that, and the other. But this was all about, I was doing this because this is what I wanted other people to see me as, this boxing trainer, this guy. So that held me back massively. But then I decided, right, I've done enough. I've worked with all these journeymen in the UK. I've been on all the professional shows, the Matchrooms, the Frank Warrens, done the York Hall circuits, all that stuff with many, many professionals. And I realized, I've got to take my chance. And I booked a one-way flight, and I fly over on a Philippine Airlines flight for £550 to Australia with a bag of clothes, boxing gloves, boxing boots, and $6,000. And very, very quickly, I found out that starting a new life in a new country is not to be fucked with. Like, it's a real hard slog. It's not easy. I was broke twice. I couldn't feed myself for like 4 days. It was a time of turmoil, joy, nostalgia, punches. But one of the hardest things that I had to face when I came to Australia was like how much abundance there is in Australia and how much money other people had, and I had fuck all. So it was really hard to see all these young kids driving around these G-Wagons and these Range Rovers, and this whole comparison is the thief of joy, is what everyone says. Well, it is, because I was over there and I was just comparing myself to everyone's step 10 when I was on step 1 in the country. So I just want to relate that back to the audience and what they're feeling right now. There might be something in your life that you're doing, right, that you look around and you're like, it might be podcasting, it might be something else, and you're looking at someone else's step 10 when you're on step 3. And I just want to tell you that is a fucking dumb idea, because you're never going to be happy if you approach life like that. And that was my early experience of Australia.
I do.
Yeah,
From a comparison
you would
perspective,
do, yeah.
From a comparison perspective, I think, for example, when I go to Dubai, I get inspiration from a lot of the people that I look at, but because I've done the work to understand that they are ahead of me on the map, they're ahead of me on the terrain, they've done things that I haven't done yet, they've done the work that I haven't done yet in particular industries, and recognizing that, in the same way I look up to podcasts like yourself. I'm close to Chris Williamson, and I think he's absolutely smashing the game when it comes to modern wisdom, but I understand that he's 6 years into the journey, and he's also moved to Austin to make it happen, and it's springboarded from there. And there's all these different things you must recognize about the guys that are great in your industry, have done things that you maybe haven't been either willing to do yet or haven't been able to do yet in terms of the skill level that you need to build up. So it's amazing that comparison can both be this really negative thing, as you say, like you get to Australia, this new country, you look around, you're like, shit, these guys are killing it. Why am I not? But the actualized version of Frankie that I speak to now looks at probably individuals within the podcasting game, within the business game, and goes, wow, that's more inspirational, just because you're not coming maybe from the same place of lack or scarcity that you were previously.
Well, there's a few things with the podcast game that I have to caveat. People like Chris Williamson smashed it. I'm really proud of to see what he's achieved, because I know how hard he's worked, and I know how genuine his growth is and everything like that. There's other people at the top of the game at the minute that if I'm totally honest with you, the reason why they don't deserve to be there is because they're put there on the back of fake analytics and fake pump ups and all this other shit that I know goes on in this industry. So I don't there isn't many at the top of the game in the UK that I look up to because of how much fuck around find out there is. So Chris Williamson is one of them because I know he's real and I know he's legit and I know his analytics are legit because I can see his growth pattern. But others in the game, you got to discern who you're listening to and what you're watching, because you see a lot of stuff. It's not
You can have
always
false
what you
idols,
see is
Frankie.
what you
I'm
get.
100% on board with that, and
Yeah,
it's the same in the business world as well. There's a lot of fugazi, and Warren Buffett has a
yeah.
quote: "When the tide comes out, you'll see who was swimming with no trunks on," basically, and that will happen in the future
It's
too.
it's going to be interesting in the podcast game. You're going to see. I'm predicting that you're going to see in the next 4 to 5 years that a few people who have got massive sponsorship deals on the back of getting lots of views and all this kind of stuff, it's going to start washing through the industry what's really going on and what's really behind it. The reason how I know that is because like that, the amount of sharing and the content's going on, the amount of all this and the other. Like, I suppose when you watch my stories or when you watch other people's stories that actually have a podcast that gets actual listenership, you'll see them share people, and you'll see like you might see famous faces share the podcast. You might see this and the other. Like, there's a real interaction with it. And I think when you see podcasts out there that seem like they're smashing it, but you don't see a lot of that, it's kind of like, oh, there's a bit of a red flag there. The reason I'm telling you this is because this relates to the audience and everything they're going through in life, because you're going to be a footballer and you're going to see other footballers you think are smashing it that are not smashing it. You're going to see models that are smashing it that aren't smashing it. You're going to see all these. This works in every industry. I'm just telling you from my perspective in podcasting, because that's the industry I'm sat in right now. There's a lot of people leading champagne lifestyles on beer tokens, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
I
And,
believe
you know,
that.
some people have just absolutely. Do you know what? I look at some podcasters in this game and I'm like, do you know what? How you've sold that to those kind of sponsors for that kind of engagement level is, I give you a round of applause, because that is salesmanship 101, you know? And that is literally what life is. Life is like, they have, they have, they have sold something they haven't got. And there's so many people selling you something that they haven't got. So make sure, if you don't look at other people and what they've got, you can't get sold something which you haven't got. So don't look
Completely
at what
agree.
anyone else is doing. Don't look at what Colin's doing. Don't look at what Frankie's doing. Don't look at what whoever else in any other industry is doing. Just focus on what's the quickest way for me to get to the internal core and understand self, because that is the key that unlocks all the fucking doors to everything that you say that you want in life, right? And how willing are you to go down a path to find out who the fuck you
One
are?
of my favorite phrases that you have, Frankie, is talking about when assessing whether the ladder that you've got up against the wall is a ladder that's climbing up the right wall. And I want to go to a point in
Yeah.
your journey when you started to assess that in your own life for the first time, because you're talking here about pursued mastery in joinery and got all these amazing qualifications, these amazing recognition, did the same in the boxing training world. But there obviously comes a moment where you're assessing that and you're thinking, is this really for Frankie or is this for others? And I find that an incredible recognition that you can have.
I can tell you the exact moment it happened. I can tell you the exact moment it happened in my life. So picture the scene. You've done the work. You've done 5-6 years in just as a boxing trainer alone, let alone what you've done in the boxing game, but like in as a boxing trainer, right? You've gone all around the country. You've gone to multiple countries across Europe. You're now in Australia. You're now walking out to the WBO World Title fight in front of 15,000 fans on 4 different TV channels across the world. Yeah, multiple TV channels. Yeah, you're walking out. You got Michael Buffer announcing the fighters in the ring, you know, and Michael Buffer stood there and he's talking about Gary Cochran, he's saying, and then he's talking about Jeff Horn, and he's like, let's get ready to rumble. And in that moment, I look out into the crowd and I'm looking out at like 15,000 people, like it's just all around us. And I'm looking there and I feel like this isn't what I was expecting it to be. This doesn't feel like my dream. Why? And we had to pull him out in round 10 or 11 because he had cuts above both eyes and one below the eye. So he eventually, you know, we had to protect him as a fighter. And we're walking back to the changing room, and I just feel like I feel different. I feel deflated. But it's not because of the loss. I've lost something way bigger than this fight as a trainer. You know what I'm saying? I've lost something way more than that. And I got back to the hotel in Brisbane, and I'm sat there on the side of the bed, and I'm like, fuck, and I'm just sat there, and I'm like, fuck me, man. I'm heartbroken. I am fucking heartbroken, because in that moment I realized that I've pursued something for all my life, and it wasn't even for me. I realized it was for other people, and what other people, and for the social media posts, and for everything else. And I was fucking heartbroken, because I thought, how can a guy who actually knows more about himself than most of the other people that you've met in life get taken along a route where he doesn't even know himself, and now he's sat there literally in tears because he's pursued something and put so much time and effort into something that just to prove something to someone else, it was soul destroying. And that opened up a whole other array of doors, that kind of another painful moment that I just had to sit in and really, really, really dig into myself, rather than let's go and fuck the world so we can forget about the pain kind of thing. Because it was a real painful moment. It was a shift that I can't even describe.
Because there's so much time and effort that's gone into it, and you've done the work so willingly as well, and with such intensity. That's probably why the emotion was so sharp when you reach that level, and you actually find that, like the way you say it, the ladder was up against the wrong wall. You were trying to climb the wrong building. You were trying to climb the wrong mountain. Whatever phrase you want to use. No wonder it hurts more, because there's been a lot of effort and time and energy invested into that. Appreciate there's probably a lot of skills that were built within that you've gone on to apply in other areas, which is always important. So that time is not lost or wasted. It's just unfortunate that you didn't have the same level of alignment that you have now back then, because imagine where you would be. But equally, these lessons are absolutely a blessing for the kind of man that you've gone on to become.
So, just for the audience's context, I really want them to understand this, that when I'm going through a part in my life where I'm coming off the back of losing a person that I thought I was going to be with, right? That's painful. Then I was coming off losing a sport I loved, and was stripped of the sport I loved because I realized that I was pursuing it for the wrong reasons. And when I left the UK, I was stripped of my family. So what am I saying to you? Well, I'm saying that in life, you have to be willing to lose something and sit within the pain of the loss to be able to see the abundance that can come on the other side of the loss, and the lesson that comes with that. But it's all about, the more pain you can endure and the more pain you can sit within, and rather than going outside of yourself to try and numb the pain, to feel it and process it and do the internal work with it, that is where this self-belief, this deep inner knowing of self comes. And when you get that fucking deep inner knowing of self, you can break through ceilings you never thought you could ever break through in your life, and you can achieve things that you never even conceptualized. And you've got to have that as a core factor in you to propel you to the level that you know deep down in your core, your true self knows exactly what it's here to do and what it's fucking about. But you sometimes deny that because you might not want to sit within the pain that you've been given. You've been given the pain to learn a lesson. So when you're given the pain, embrace the pain and learn the lesson that you're given. Do not cover it up, essentially, is what
It's
I learned.
wonderful that you've had that really two clear examples in the first 30 minutes of us getting to speak together that you're able to call upon. And I also, the reason that I think that first initial moment of pain is so valuable to late 2023, Frankie, is that you recognized that you needed to sit within it, because you know that good things come off the back of being willing to do that. Whereas in today's society, as I was saying, there's so many temptations, so many vices that we can dive into, that some people have never sat in pain for longer than a couple of minutes before they try to escape from something else. I'm not happy with this, I'll just distract myself. I'm not happy with that, I'll just distract myself. Whereas back in 2017, you've done that work and willingly been like, okay, I need to sit within this pain. And it's a future lesson for all these different experiences that have probably come up over the last number of years throughout that time, where you've been like, okay, good things come when I am willing to accept what this pain is right now, understand it, go deeper into my inner self, and identify what I need to do to propel myself forward. And I guess if you look at your timeline, it's very important that people understand that you've had these lessons previously, and it's continuing to happen continually for you.
So the lessons are getting they're getting like real specific because I've done so much inner work now. When I get a lesson now, it's really specific and to the point. I'm like, oh, like when the breakup with the relationship was all to do about, I'm very giving to other people and I like to give the world value and I try and give everyone else everything. But sometimes people can give so much of themselves that they can kind of lose themselves on the other side of that, or potentially risk losing themselves. Now I'm dialed in to never truly lose myself, but I can still lose parts of myself. And in that relationship, I was losing and compromising parts of myself. And I had to realize that. And the only way to realize that is to go through a little bit of pain and understand where these lines were crossed, lines that shouldn't have been crossed, you know, in this relationship, because, you know, I have a podcast and I have things to do and I have structure, and how I move my life is like this. And if someone's going to come and fit in with that, they have to dial in with the way that and the direction of my life, because that's just the way it is for me, because I designed my life to facilitate that type of life, because that's what I love and that's what I enjoy. It's what lights me up. So when you have to know that when you start getting pulled off course, be it by a person, whether it's a friend, whether it's a parent, whether it's someone else putting doubt into your life or questioning or something else like that, you have to be like, sit within your power. This is the power I'm talking about. The power is all within you to change anything, any area of your life. But you just have to, one, believe it's possible, and two, be willing to put the work and the reps in to achieve the outcome that you want.
It's so
So
important.
have a
Yeah.
definite purpose.
You
Yeah.
speak so clearly on it now, Frankie, but I want to go back to a point where you first started working with Lino in your journey. And I want you to tell the audience who Lino was to you and what he enabled and unlocked.
Lino, in a lot of ways, he's a brother to me. You know, he was my breathwork coach. He was my breathwork coach. And I met Lino on the back of another breakup. I've, you know, when it comes to dating beautiful women, you know, I've got the t-shirt and I've dated all the beautiful women. But one key thing that I've noticed about all the beautiful women that I've dated is all the beautiful women I've dated have come from, homes where the dad's gone missing, or, you know, they've got a negative connotation with the male masculine figure in their life. Whereas I've come from a stable background. My mom and dad have been married 40 years. So I noticed, through working with Lino at the time of this breakup and going into all the breath work and all the stuff, this was back in Australia, like 3 years ago or something, that I was trying to repair other people and trying to be this, you know what I mean? Like you just get into this, I can fix everything because I fix everything else in everyone else's life, and try and have a podcast that helps people fix up and move on. So you become this fixer. So my process with Lino and getting introduced to Lino was through my friend Molly, and me and Lino went on a breathwork journey where I committed that I would breathe with him like literally daily for like 12 weeks. And it just took me further and further and further and further inward. And what I realized was, and what came out for me was, there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of hurt, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of feeling of dismay, a lot of feeling of disdain, a lot of feeling of hurt, angry. But this was all stored in me at a cellular level. You see, when someone pisses you off and you think that, and you've not spoken about it in the physical world or said anything, this and other, you are storing that in a cellular level within your body. And I'd done this my whole life. So I was releasing traumas and releasing patterns right the way through this breathwork journey. And it was beautiful because, again, what did it give me? It gave me an opportunity over 12 weeks to really lean into that. And then obviously with Lino, I went on guided mushroom journeys when I was ready for the stage, and that taught me a whole new level of self and everything. But if you're asking me to describe it in one word, I'd just say transformational. It just changed my whole fucking life. You know,
If we look at the
quite a
language
few
that you're
things
able
have been
to
like
use
that
now,
to
though,
me.
Frankie, that's from somebody that's done the work. If you spoke to somebody who was using some of the terminology we're using, talking about the inner self, and you weren't ready to hear it, you would think, oh, woo woo, like, oh, what's he talking about? That's so spiritual. Like, I'm not connecting with that. But the way that you join it together from a fluency perspective and an actional perspective, that's why people are willing to hear and listen, because the messenger really does matter in these things, in my opinion. If I look at my audience, if my guests don't walk the walk, but they talk the talk, the episode does not perform as well and people don't take as much action off the back of it. They don't feel moved to share it to an Instagram story. They don't feel moved to send it into a group chat. They don't feel moved to say, oh, I ended up buying that journal, or I ended up doing this course, or whatever it was off the back of this conversation, because I was really inspired. If I look at the journey you've been on and you're talking about those initial 12 weeks, it's completely rewired and transformed some of the language that you use and the way that you think about yourself. And of course, recognizing that you were storing some of this, and we can use the term trauma is thrown around too easily nowadays, but I completely agree with it. In this circumstance, you were storing trauma that needed to be let out through some sort of outlet. And it just so happened that breathwork was the initial connection that enabled you to dig in there and decide to deal with it.
I think what a lot of this audience has to understand, Colin, is one simple thing. The person you have the conversation with the most is yourself. And how you talk to yourself is crucially important to what you get in your physical reality and what you manifest, so to speak, from other people. So other people will only treat you how you treat yourself. So if I negate my non-negotiables with a girl, with a woman in my life, then of course the world's going to show me more lessons about that. If you're out there not speaking up when someone's wronged you, or letting friends get away with talking to you, something like that, or letting family talk to you a certain way, again, that inner thing, you need to make your inner self. And I'm talking to every single one of you that's still with me at this point in the podcast, right? You're talking, and I want to say to you, I've gone from a carpenter and £11 an hour to someone who's got online business and this, that, and the other. I'm not saying that I'm fucking Elon Musk, but what I am saying is, like, if you can't resonate with this journey, I don't know what journey you're going to resonate with. But now is the time to resonate with something, because what I'm saying to you right now could actually change your life. The internal dialogue and the way that you speak to yourself is so, so crucial and powerful. It's your way to transform self in levels you can never even comprehend. And I just need every single one of you to really get that everything that Colin's asking me and everything that I'm trying to lead towards is all about internal dialogue. What is your internal conversation like? Is it kind? Would you speak to a friend that way? And when I started to go through this pattern with Lino, there was things that I was saying to myself internally that were just, you can't even imagine how much I hated some parts of myself, like I hadn't even accepted some parts of myself.
What were the big
Imagine
parts that
going
showed
through
up,
your
Frankie?
whole life. I think I'd never given myself any self-love, and I never gave myself any credit for what I was achieving. When I actually look back at what I've achieved in the world, like it's pretty fucking special to me. Like, I should be proud of that. Why shouldn't I be proud of that? Not many people would go out and put themselves out there enough to do that. And that's not to be arrogant or to be condescending to anyone listening to this. It's to say that I have, in order for me to achieve everything I want in my future, which is way more than I've got now, I have to accept then and be kind to myself about what I've already done, because that's a building block in order to instill the self-belief to know that you've achieved this. Well done. We're not going to stand there and clap forever, but let's just pause for a moment, look back, reflect, accept that we've worked hard. We've got to a point. That point was a dream to us 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago. Accept it and be like, okay, that's fucking good. I'm going to celebrate that. I'm going to clap myself along the way. I've done all right there. I've still got more to go and take from the world, and still got more to give the world. But let's just celebrate the journey, because let's just say the journey that you're on right now, and you listen to this and your journey feels like a struggle or a battle or uphill or this, that, and the other. If your life feels like that, there's one thing that you're not fucking doing, and that's getting present with the moment that you're in and sitting in a bit of gratitude for what you've got, right? Because even if you think your life's shit because you've got a £15 an hour job and you're not in the job you enjoy, there's someone over there that would love to get out of their wheelchair and go to work right now and do what you're doing, but you don't ever sit in any gratitude, and you can't ever pull yourself to a higher vibrational frequency without first going into gratitude for what you already have.
There's two words, they both begin with P, that you've used. One of them was pause, and then the other one there was perspective. Because if you pause, you give yourself the opportunity to assess. And the kind of people that listen to a self-development podcast every single week for an hour and a half, best believe we are quite relentless. We're always chasing something, and they fall into the same trap that you did, where they don't recognize the potential achievements. And that when you pause, that's your opportunity to zoom out And understand, as you said, 10 years ago, you would have killed to live this lifestyle, or you would have killed to have this job or this car or this watch or this access to resources that you've got, like the gym that you get to go to every day, and you drive your car there and it's warm and it's safe, and you get to go and pursue the best version of yourself. And then the perspective piece, my goodness, there's so many good ways that we can do that in terms of, and that's where you do compare yourself to the hardships of others, and you understand that we do have it very fortunate. I personally, and I think many podcast bros fall into this environment, I always talk about Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's a fantastic book in order to just assess quite how much hardship man can tolerate in terms of the concentration camps and all the different horrors that come with that. But you can scale that down, as you said, to absolutely anything in any particular area, and just have that moment of gratitude for the circumstances which you find yourself in. But not only that, but also the agency that you have. If you have the time and the money and the resources to sit and listen to a podcast for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, you're probably in a pretty good circumstance that you could take agency over your current circumstances and improve them in some regard. Maybe not all the way to the dream life that you've always dreamed of at this moment in time, but you can move the needle in the right direction. And when you take the time to consume content like this and you move forward with it, you're going to end up in a different place from the vast majority of society who are on that autopilot, chugging along lifestyle and never taking time to pause, as you've compelled people to do, Frankie.
Well, the one way to do it, in my opinion, is to change your language. And the language that I would change is from this. It's from the I have to go to work to I get to go to work. I have to go to the gym. I get to go to the gym. I have to buy my mum flowers. I get to buy my mum flowers. Do you understand? Like, it's language. Language is casting spells on your life. It's called spelling for a reason, because the words that you speak cast spells into your life, and those spells manifest in your reality. It sounds woo-woo. It sounds like, oh, you've gone away with the fairies. No, I just know it from dealing. I've been through levels of life and can conceptualize where I've moved further ahead by talking to myself in a kinder way than when I haven't. And it's not even like a little bit of difference. It's night and day
Completely
difference.
agree,
How you
Frankie.
speak to yourself, how you look at yourself is everything.
There's genuine science behind it as well. The neuroplasticity in your brain evolves based on the language that you use. And I've been fortunate to host a number of different performance coaches from the US, and the US are so much better at this than the Brits. And so I interviewed a lady called Lauren Johnson, who was the performance coach for the New York Yankees for a number of years. And she always talks about changing the term nervous to excited. Now, they're fundamentally similar.
Yep.
Butterflies in the stomach. If we're going to quote Eminem, these weak arms are heavy, like your palms are sweating, all that nonsense, right? That is 100% the case. But by changing, I'm getting excited to play this game, from I'm nervous to play this game, you start to recognize that this energy that you're feeling, this level of heightened awareness and state, is going to help you perform, not hinder it. So if I was nervous before a public speech or a pitch that I'm doing to a new client, I'm going to fumble my words. I'm going to talk too quickly. But if I'm excited, I'm going to be sharper, more articulate. I'm going to recall examples, and I'm going to remember the things that I want to ask. I've just completely flipped the language to enable me to perform at my best self. And so I love when you use the example of get to or have to, or whatever the terminology is. When you make that change, your mind and your body react differently off the back of it, and people can dismiss it, but you're the one that's applying it and reaping the rewards of doing so. So why not join in the game? If you think it's stupid, give it a try, and we'll see who's laughing in 2-3 weeks' time when you've had a noticeable impact on how you live.
Yeah, see, anxiety and excitement, like you say, are the exact same chemical, exact same feeling. The reason why you've identified it as anxiety is because you're using it as a disempowering point in your life, when you could be using it as an empowering point. So it's like, you get to, everything that you look at in your life, you get to look at through two lenses, right? You get to look at whether you're going to take something from it, or you get to look at it like it's a negative, like I said, took something away from you. And you get the power of choice as a human being. You've got the choice on how you look at everything that happens to you in life. I just now consciously choose, even when it's painful to do it, I consciously choose to look at what I've learned from that lesson. What have you learned from that relationship? And send, positive vibes that person's way. if you're breaking up with someone, like if you're in a job, you're like, what are you learning from the job? What skills are you you might be in a sales job, you might not enjoy it, but you're learning how to sell, you're learning how to talk to people, you're learning how to communicate. That is a great skill to learn and take with you to other areas of your life. So everything's giving you something. It doesn't, so just don't look at it like it's always taken from you, because that's where the kicker is. That's where the punch comes. You don't need to have that punch every day.
Agreed, Frankie. One of the things you brought up is that you've managed to build an online business during this period, and that's content removal. When did that start?
ContentRemoval.com started in 2017. September 2017, I started ContentRemoval.com. It was a mad journey to finding ContentRemoval.com. I tell you, it's a mental journey. I'll dial it in because I think it's a powerful one for the audience to
Let's
learn.
do
I
it.
think they'll learn something from it. So I had a boxing gym, a one-to-one boxing gym in the Gold Coast, and I had a client come in called James Gray, and I thought at that time that I was helping him lose weight. Whilst I'm helping him lose weight, and we're taking stones off this guy, kilos off this guy, week in, week out, because he was quite overweight, but he was a very, very good, articulate businessman, salesman. He said to me, Frankie, do you read? And I'm like, no, at the time I didn't read. I didn't read books. I didn't do all these things. He says, well, you got to start reading Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon, Wolf of Wall Street, Straight Line Selling, all this kind of stuff. 10x, like all these books and classics I started to read, and I started to understand when I started to read, it was improving my language, how I articulated myself. It was taking me away from that building site talk of always swearing every second word and allowing me to put language together. It was just improving all areas of my life. And he said to me, you know what, Frankie, you should, if you truly want to move forward in life, you should get into sales, because sales is what you should be doing. Like sales will unlock doors for you that you can't even see. And I thought I was training him, but actually he was paying, but also mentoring me at the time. So I leave my gym, and I shut it up, and I started this sales role, and I'm working for this reputation management company. Now, my first sales role was in a marketing company working for him, and I lasted a week and I got sacked because I couldn't read off a script and do all that stuff. And he just said, look, man, you're not listening to what I'm saying. Forget about it. And that hurt me a lot, because I thought, fuck me, you're the one that told me to get into sales, but you've got rid of me after a week. So it's like, well, fucking kind of like popcorn. You didn't even give me a chance. But he was teaching me something there that I couldn't see at the time, but shortly after I saw it. So that just gave me that needle in me. Like I still had that I've got to prove a world a point thing. And that was helping me at this point in time, because I hadn't quite squashed that in my character. So I got another job working in a reputation management company. And I was looking, and I thought, I'm going to go a bit different with this one. I'm going to look at the outside of what they're doing, and I'm going to see how I can add my own little flair into this and send it off a little bit more. So I realized that the whole team over here were doing like 30, 40, 50 grand a month between like three of them on the phones over here. And I was coming in, and I was in between sales and BDM role. And I'd proper sold myself in the interview as like, I've been doing this for years. Don't worry about me. I've got this covered. And then I literally watched a Jordan Belford straight line selling course for about 3 hours and just absorbed it all. And that's all the sales training I had. So I get there, and I start realizing how they're selling this is not how to do it. Why are we doing 1.5, 2, 3 grand deals when we could be doing? It takes as much time to do a 3 grand deal as it does to do 100 grand, as 50 grand. It's just like, and I'm like, I'm so early in sales. I'm like, I'm onto something here. So I started reaching out to celebrities and brands and
Bigger
big
fish.
players. And I started doing like 10. I started to do like a 10, like these lot were doing 1.5 grand review removals. I was doing like 5 grand, 10 grand, 32 grand, 50 grand. We get on to month 2. My first few months sales, like 175 grand. I've outsold all of these fuckers inside a couple of months. So now, because I'm now reading books at the same time, I start thinking to myself, hang on a minute. I'm a sales guy. I'm on uncapped potential, but I'm in a highly taxed role right now because I'm taking it as personal income. I realized I needed a piece of equity of the business. So I presented a meeting and said, look, I'm outselling your 3 or 4 of your sales guys here on my own, right? And I reckon I could run it up to like 3, 4, 500 a month, K a month. I'm happy to do that. I want 5% of the business. And they're looking at me like, fucking hell, this guy's a cheeky little bastard. But I knew that I deserved that equity in the business because of what I
You
was
were
bringing
also
to the
opening your
table.
mind up to the
So
possibility of asking for big things through the content you were consuming. It didn't seem out of reach. So I really resonate with that. I like it.
yeah, nothing seemed impossible. So I sit there for this meeting and I ask for this equity. And of course, they come back and they offer me like 0.25% or something nonsensical. And because I had so much self-belief in my ability to sell and that I could sell anything now because I'd just done this, I'm like, well, fuck it then. I quit. So I quit and I'm walking out the office and I come back the next day and I was coming back through the week to finish off a couple of days of my term, and I get a call from this celebrity that I'd been trying to sign forever for this company to do reputation management for. I get a call from her head of PR, and she goes to me, "Look, Frankie, I've just looked over your proposal, and she says, I want to give you an analogy." And I went, "Oh, what's the analogy?" She goes, "Well, reputation management seems a bit like plumbing. It seems like we're pushing shit down, but it's just going to come back up. Why can't we remove the content?" I went, "What do you mean, like content removal?" She's like, "Yeah, content removal. Why can't you do that?" And I'm sat there and I'm like, "Well, explain then. So if I could give you a way to remove the content, that's what you want. That's what you'll pay for. Is it?" Like, she's like, "Yeah." I said, "No worries. We'll present you with a proposal to remove content." So I got off the call. I go on to GoDaddy.com. I type in content removal. Contentremoval.com's there for like $550. I mean, that domain now is worth about 200 grand, right? So just to conceptualize how the universe gives you things, right? So just understand from this story, the universe is giving me a sign right now. It's saying, here's a gift horse. Don't look it in the
And
mouth.
you were open to the
So
opportunity and ready to take action on it, which is vital.
vital. So I just bought this domain, right? I bought this domain and I walked out of that office and I packed my shit up and I bought contentremoval.com. And I'm sat there and I'm like, I don't know how to remove content. I don't know anything about this industry, but fuck me, can I sell? Fuck me, can I sell? So I said to Lucinda, her name was, this head of PR. I said, "Lucinda, send me over the links you want to remove." She sent me 11 links. I wrote a fucking proposal that said this: "Changed my life forever." This proposal changed my life. So dial into this point because this is fucking crucial. Because if you're running an agency business, these proposals change your life. So make sure you listen to this part of the podcast because it's important. I wrote a proposal that said this: "Once I've removed 5 links, this unlocks a contract." And then I put the contract value, and it was a long proposal and it had the links in it and it explained what I was going to deliver and all this kind of stuff. I'd made it all up based upon what the market was saying and anyway, I made it all up. How I got to the figure of what I was going to propose the contract for is I took what I owed on my mortgage and I put it with what I needed to earn per year and I put it together and I came to 132 grand, right? And I sent the proposal for 132 grand to Lucinda. And I said to her, once I've removed 5 links of the 11, it unlocks this contract. Does that sound fair enough? And they came back and went, yes, that sounds fair enough. But I'm sat there with one fucking problem. I've never removed a piece of content in my entire life and I'm stuck here with 5 bits of content, but fuck me, I'm going to find out how to do it, right? So I get a call shortly after I've just got this acceptance to do this deal. And I get a call. It's off my friend in the UK. And there was a website called anon.ib and it had been leaking all the girls' nudes across the UK in files all over the internet. So if they'd ever sent a nude to their boyfriend, there was other guys sharing other girls' nudes on this site. And a couple of my girlmates, my girlmate and her friend had been
Exposed,
implicated in
yeah.
this and had their content shared, right? And I was like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "Well, you're in reputation management. Can you help us remove the content?" I thought, ironically, I am contentremoval.com now and I can help you. So I go off and I learn how to remove content by removing these girls' nudes online, right? So I get this shut down, and I I just became a savage at removing content. And then I started to get like one link removed for this client, and then I got the second link, and then I got the third link, and then 2 links fell. And I'm like, fuck me. I unlocked that contract. By removing that 5 links. And that $132,000 was earned off the back of thinking, not physical labor, thinking. That client stayed with me for 7 fucking years and paid me at starting point 132 grand and went on from there. Now, here's the kicker. I took that model and repeated it another 2 times with another couple of influencers in fitness and fashion in Australia. And inside month 1 of my business, I was doing $500,000 a year in revenue, right? And it all came from thinking. I just took an idea and I just ran with it, and I sold it first, and I figured it out on the way down, and it changed my fucking life forever.
I love to hear that, Frankie. And I knew it was an inspiring story, but I love the depth that we've managed to go into along the journey as well. And I really think that there's a lot to be learned from. You found in particular a real pain point in the industry that was like not being addressed, and circumstance and opportunities and whatever came your way, you just continued to take it and take it and take it and take it. And one of the questions I want to ask you about contentremoval.com is that it's clearly something that is extremely valuable to celebrities, influencers, whoever it is out there that has stuff out there on the internet about them that wants removed, and you've been able to scale it to a really incredible level. But I know that alongside that, you've been building the podcast. I want to understand the different sacrifices that have to happen for these both to coexist at once.
About £9 million a year.
Wow.
That's how much has been sacrificed. Yeah.
How would you explain that to
Straight
somebody
down the
who
line.
doesn't understand why you would sacrifice that 9 million?
Because, you know, content removal as a business can easily do $1 million a month. Like, you know what I mean? Easy. 1.2 million. The sacrifice is that you can't service as many clients. You can only service select clients. You don't want to hold a massive book of clients. You just want to pick and choose your clients. You run a highly profitable agency model on a small scale, and you don't, you know, you might run it at like, you know, 100, 150K a month rather than trying to run it at $1 million a month. So it costs you about 9 to 10 million in revenue. That's how it works. Like, if I'm truly honest with you, that's how much you lose. Why I've done it is this. I know I'm meant to be a voice in the world and speak at a top level and add value to people's lives. And I know there's many, many, many 9 millions to be made in this world, and you can make them in ways that you fully enjoy. I look after a lot of famous women, and I enjoy looking after them because they deserve to be protected online because of what they do, and they don't deserve to be attacked in the way that they're attacked. And you know, I've got a sister, and I wouldn't want her attacked in that way. So I look after a lot of women, and I look after a lot of brands. I look after a lot of very famous like CEOs and stuff like that as well. But, you know, I have a small book of clients, 15, 20 on at any one time. And, you know, I service them, and I care about them, and they become friends of mine as well through the business. And I run a small team, and everything's like that. And I keep it like that for a reason. But the true cost of having a passion for a podcast like this is the cost of opportunity. And the cost of opportunity at the moment is like probably about 9 to 10 million quid a year. So if you look at other businesses in my space, they're the kind of numbers that they're all doing. So that's the cost of opportunity. That's the true cost of opportunity. And I know with pure focus and pure pursuit of just that goal, I know I do that number. I know I do it. I outsell all of them. But you have to be truly in love with the purpose. But my purpose isn't contentremoval.com. My purpose is to speak to millions of people and to be in their ear and to push them further in their life and to move the message. And if that's got to cost me a little bit of short-term gain to see my long-term vision come into the world, I will pay that price every day and twice on a Sunday. And I'm willing to do that. And I'll wear it, and I won't let it upset me, because I know that the world's got a bigger plan for me. And I know I get paid back in perpetuity for the value that I bring to the world. And I bring a hell of a lot more value to the world with my voice, I believe, than I will ever bring with
I think
contentremoval.com.
that's a really important realization. And I want to share with you something that I learned from one of my guests, Dr. Yusuf Smith, in one of my interviews. He told me about the 4 currencies, and you're going to like this, Frankie. Currency number 1, money. So that's the revenue from contentremoval.com or whatever business or whatever career you're in. Currency number 2 is freedom of time. So that's the ability to spend your time as you wish. Like, is it relatively, are you trading an hour of your time for X amount, whatever else? Number 3, freedom of location. So wherever you want to be, you can travel, you can move around. You don't necessarily need to be at an office or at a base. You could work from wherever. And number 4 is what you've just been speaking about really, really clearly there. And it's passion and fulfillment. And so many people don't optimize for that 4th one, and they don't understand that that 4th one is so important. But if I look at how you have set up your life at the moment, you are really strongly optimizing for satisfaction at the behest of number 1, £9 million potentially worth per year that you're sacrificing off the back of that. And I firmly believe from the people that I've spoken to that have been the most successful, but also the most fulfilled and content in how they live their lifestyles and in alignment with who their true selves are. And they have longevity off the back of that as well. That's a key thing about podcasting that many people underrate. If you want to jump on this just for views, or you're actually in love with having the conversations and having it put out,
Good luck.
100%, you'll
Good
fall off,
luck.
won't you?
Good
We know
luck.
this. You have really recognized the importance of number 4. And the people that last in whatever industry they turn their hand to and last in life in terms of they're a level, steady, happy, content person over the longer term, they understand that you cannot just optimize for 1, 2, or 3, in particular number 1 in terms of money, because it doesn't last.
I can always earn enough money to do what I need to do in my life because I have the ability to sell, and I only sell stuff that I believe in. You know, when I told people from day one that I'm the best in the world at removing content. There's no one. I didn't even know how to remove content, but I became the best because I believed it from day one. Even when I couldn't even remove content, I set the standard before I've even entered the arena of what I'm going to do. Like, you know, I want to build the biggest education podcast in the world. Why? Because I know it's within me. I know it's what I'm here to do. I know what I'm about. I know it. I know the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe in every level of my being. To compromise that just to chase an extra few zeros on a bank account that when you spend it, I know that the money doesn't make you happy, bro. Do you know how many bros I see in Dubai that are just rolling around with the cars, the watches, the obnoxious girlfriends that they're not, but I know these guys. They're not happy. They're not fulfilled. I walk through life with a black t-shirt, black trousers. It just, my life is so simple. My life is so simple. I eat clean food. I just want to train at the gym. I just want to have interesting conversations. Today, I spoke to the family office of a billionaire, right? Who wants reputation management. And what you got to realize about billionaires is they just don't want to be on the internet. And when I ask them why they don't want to be on the internet, it's because why would we're optimizing our life? We just want peace and tranquility, and we don't want to be on the internet, Frankie. And we're happy to pay you decent amounts of money to just make that not happen. You know, so we don't want our children. We don't. What about a personal brand? And they just laugh at you. You know, family offices laugh at you for personal brand. So it's like you got to understand that you have to first know who you are and what you want, and then you can optimize for that. If you don't have that, and we go back to this internal conversation with yourself, I could have blindly pursued money, but I'm not. I just pursue now enough high value clients that I want to, one, they've got to add value to my network. They've got to pay my fees. They've got to be a joy to service as a client. And I'm telling you now, the higher the value to the client, the nicer they are to service as a client anyway. And I'll add massive value to your life, but they add value to my life too. And I'll run a smaller book of clients, and I'll run it highly profitable, and I'll deliver a mad amount of value. And I'll also not lose touch with who the fuck I am along the process. And it's non-negotiable,
It's a line in the sand.
If I am not optimizing for revenue numbers, right? Because that is like selling your soul to the devil. Because when does the revenue number end? If I got it to 10 million, now it has to go to 20 million. If I got it to 20, it has to go to 40. If I get to 40, it has to go to 80. Oh, now there has to be an exit. Why does there have to be an exit? Why can't it just be a cash flow business that funds other areas of your life? Why does it have to be? Why do you have to systemize it to be exitable? Who told you that? Why does
That
it
would
have
be a
to be that
ladder on
way?
the wrong wall, wouldn't
Just
it?
because? Yeah, because my mate William Brown says to me, "Why don't you build that to sell it?" I'm like, "You don't understand." He's like, "What don't I understand? You can sell anything. You can sell that for a lot of money." Yeah, I could. You're right, I could. But you know how much work I got to put in for a year and a half to get to the point where it's a saleable asset in the way that you're telling me
And
to
it would
sell it?
pull
And
energy
I don't
away
want to
from
do
what
that
really
work.
matters, which is your opportunities to go to Dubai, America, Australia again, and build the show in the direction that you want to build it in with the
Right.
conversations.
Bro, when you have the kind of people ringing you up to help them in the way that I do, you really don't need to worry about optimizing for just revenue. You know what I'm saying? Like I've looked after some of the biggest celebrities in the world, right? Since 2017. And I know that people within the industry know I'm the best at what I do. And I am the best at what I do in the content removal space. But I don't need to go and build a massive fucking behemoth company that does 10 million a month just to have a dick swinging competition with someone in Dubai over a metric I do not care about.
That's vital, though, Frankie. You recognize it's a metric you don't care about because too many people are too plugged in.
Yeah, you're so close to it. And everyone else is like on money Twitters telling you, grow this company, get this revenue number. But none of them have ever turned around to themselves and gone, oh, does this actually fulfill me? Does this make me happy? What's the difference between 40 grand a month and 100 grand a month? What's the difference between 100 grand a month and a million? Like, what lifestyle are you trying to optimize for?
There's got to be a trade off.
Because let me tell you, right? Let me tell you, how if you haven't sat down and said, how much does my ideal life actually cost? And then reverse engineer what you need from that. Because my ideal life doesn't cost as much as kind of what other people's ideals life do, because I couldn't give a fuck about the Lamborghini or the this, the that, the other. Now, will I potentially get them in the future? And if I want to, but I'm optimized for traveling around the world with a microphone, a laptop, the ability to earn decent amount of money at a 90% profit margin business, because I like to run at these kind of numbers because I like profit margins. And I optimize my life around that, and I travel like that, and I pivot like that. And guess what? You can pivot super hard when you're traveling around with 2 suitcases, and you could be in any location. You can pivot real hard, real quick. You would want to dial it up, you spin off. You want to dial that, spin off. You know what I mean? And I own properties and stuff like that, and I'm not fucking interested. Like, it doesn't interest me. I'm mortgage free. Like, who gives a fuck? But it does. But I realize that as well. We're all taught to buy a house. What do you need a fucking house for? It's the worst thing you can buy. Just takes your capital, strains it. You know, if I'd invested that couple of hundred in that I've paid off over the time, it's cost me more money. If I'd invested that into me, you're not telling me that I can't go and make millions on the back of that 200 grand. So even that's a poor investment. It's like, so what am I saying then? I'm saying have the internal conversation with yourself about what you want. It's not about Frankie Lee. It ain't about Colin. It's not about fucking Dave down the road and what he wants or what fucking Sally wants. No one gives a fuck about them. It's about you right now listening to this conversation. What the fuck do you want? Have you sat down with yourself? Are you going to sit down with yourself today? Are you going to ask yourself the questions? You know, what do I want? Why do I even want that? Is that really what I'm trying to achieve? How much money does my ideal life cost me? These are the questions you need to answer on a journal today, and you can get clear on
I
everything.
love that because it also allows you to join the dots to how to get there as well. And when you write it down, as you say in a journal, it's there in cold hard writing and on paper. And there's definitely something cognitive that occurs when you write something versus when you type it. And don't get me wrong, I've got loads of inspiring stuff that I've written into my iPhone notes, whatever else.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I've confined to my journal, there's a deeper connection to it off the back of that. And I love those questions and prompts that you've given, because when you do start to think about those things, that's when you get the opportunity to pause as you've encouraged and identify if what you're doing right now is going to take you towards that, or if you're maybe running in the wrong direction. Because a lot of people that listen to this are really hard workers, but you might be running on the wrong treadmill, or you might be climbing the wrong ladder, as we've said.
Yeah. You're taught to be a hard worker at school. I don't know if I've still got it. I don't know if it's on the table. Hold on. I want to show you something.
Yeah.
I want to show the audience this, because this is the power of, right. See this journal. If you're lucky enough to go on a first class flight on Emirates, this is the journal they give you in the cabin, right? Now, I envisioned going on first class in Emirates and stuff like that for a long time before it ever happened. But I finally treated myself to go in there, right? And this is the power of a journal. I found this when I came back to England, but this journal says, and I'll show you in a second, it says Frankie Lee, the 1st of June, 2023. It says, from the first class suite of the Emirates flight EK65 on the 777, dream it, believe it, become it. And then I signed it. And then I put #1 education podcast in the world, the Frankie Lee podcast. And then I wrote down vision, right? You see that?
I see it.
Right. And then I won't share my vision because that's kind of a personal thing that I don't think you should. It's a game plan, and the vision's between me, myself, and I. But what I'm going to tell you about this, right? And I wrote this in June. There's a vision on the other side of this page, right? The vision that I wrote has already started to come in, like a lot of it, yeah. And that's the power of pen to fucking paper. Right. So you want to take yourself into what you find an inspiring location. So maybe it's a hotel in London that you've always wanted to go to. Maybe it's this, that, and the other. And you want to sit in that location and you want to feel that energy of the location and you want to write. I booked myself that first class flight, not to fly fucking first class. I couldn't give a fuck about that. I booked it to feel worthy of it and to start to manifest and vision that reality.
Unlock the ability to be creative as well, Frankie, which I think is key.
Yeah. So it just like, oh, if this was a dream 3 years ago and I'm sat here now doing this, what would it be like to fly this way every time? What would it feel like? Oh, okay, let's try that on. Basically, what am I doing? I'm allowing myself to try on things that I said I wanted previously. I try them on. I'm like, oh, this feels good, and it gives me this. And then I try and use that moment with a journal like this. Cost you about £2 and a pen. It's like I use that to take me to the next level. And it's like that's what I always control my life with. It's just I just put myself in a location and I start to think and I got a vision board over there. I love vision boards because I got my like penthouse apartment that I'm gonna have on my vision board and all sorts of shit that I'm gonna have. Just because it's stuff that I actually want and I value. It's like my dream is to have a penthouse with the podcast studio in the penthouse in an exotic location near a beach. It's like, so I'll have it. It's all in my future timeline, but I'm just closing the gap between future-based reality and my reality by looking at it every day and just trying it on. So like why I'm on this beautiful Italian leather sofa in England at the minute in this beautiful place that I've got. Yeah, it's all good. It's all paid for. It's all great. But I'm sat here right now and I could close my eyes and I can imagine that I'm sat in my Italian leather city in my penthouse apartment in Dubai, in Miami, wherever. That is the beauty. Your mind is so fucking powerful that you can put yourself in any location, even if you're not even in that location. And guess what? Your mind has no fucking idea between the truth and the non-truth in this moment. And I tell you how we know that. Because when you do something and you punish yourself and you say nasty things about yourself, you know that isn't true, but you still say it and you still believe it, right? And it still disempowers you. So why not use it the other side of the coin where it can empower you and it can move you forward? And I really hope that you get what I'm saying here.
It hits so hard, Frankie. And like you say, if you do that work, there's then a clear roadmap for you to then join those dots and move towards it and fulfill those dreams and realities that you make sure are actual dreams and realities that you truly want and haven't just been societally programmed to do. And I feel that's a really inspiring note for us to wrap up on. The only other question I've got for you, apart from where people can find you and tune into your podcast, is at the end of 2024, with the momentum that you've got just now, what would you look back on and smile about if it had been a success? What would have to happen for that to be the case?
At the end of this year, I think at the end of this year, in order to look back on my life this year, would be to say, have you learned what you needed to learn to be even closer to the best version of yourself than you are right now? Have you learned those lessons? Have you really learned them? And if you have, that is the greatest lesson that I could have had in 2024. Now, one thing I've done with podcasting and one thing I've done with everything in my life is I divorce myself from the outcome and get totally focused on dialing in the reps of whatever I'm doing, the reps, the emails for content removal, the bits, the bobs that need to happen in order to facilitate the clients coming on board. I get dialed in with doing the reps with the podcast. I'm just dialed in with the calories that need to go in and the training that needs to happen in the gym to make things happen. I don't get involved in I'm not an outcome guy. I'm an input guy. What have I got to input to this machine, to this person, to my mind, to my soul, to everything else? What have I got to input to get the outcome I so desire? And that's why I want to remind you, and the constant theme throughout this podcast has been, I just want to remind you that the closer you can get to yourself and the more questions and the more depth you can get from within yourself, the closer you're going to be to knowing what you want. And when you know what you want, you can reverse engineer the outcome. And I'm going to reverse engineer the outcome by the end of 2024 to know a lot more about myself than I know right now. And that is going to put me in the position with the podcast and with everything else I'm doing that's vastly superior to what I'm doing right now. And I want that all of you that listen to this to do that in your life, because this podcast isn't about me. It's not about Colin. It's about adding value in your ears. And that is the best thing that you can do for yourself.
Completely correct, Frankie. I love to hear that. Final question then. Where should people head towards if they want to continue the conversation with you?
If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Frankie Lee. If you want to listen to the podcast, it's the Frankie Lee podcast. It's on YouTube, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's everywhere else you get your podcasts as well. I just appreciate you taking your time today to speak with me, Colin. And I also want all of your audience to, like and subscribe to the podcast and send Colin a message to let him know that he's doing well along his journey. If this has added value to your life, let me know as well. I'd like to hear about it too. But I just really want you to appreciate, people like me and Colin are out in the world doing the reps to try and push you in the right direction. It'd be nice if you reached out to Colin and just let him know how he's going on his journey.
Amen, Frankie. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to you, the listener. I'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.